Hi everyone, it's Mariah Russell, and today I wanted to talk about the difference between consent and coercion. And the biggest thing that I've been coming to, as I've been playing around with this a lot lately, is what is the difference. I mean, we all kind of know what the difference between consent and coercion is, but the biggest thing that I've been able to distill this down to is that consent is based on love, whereas coercion is based on fear. Consent is giving, whereas coercion is taking. And so I think if we can kind of reframe it into those terms, this might make it a little bit easier of a conversation. Because if we look at consent in terms of, this is how I am choosing to behave out of love, rather than out of expectation or obligation. Because when we tell people, this is how you should act, or this is how you're expected to act, or this is what you ought to do, then one, we're disempowering them, and two, are we really even invoking their own consent? And so instead, I think if we reframe this conversation in terms of love, it might be a little bit more useful. It might seem more like a dialogue rather than telling people how they should be. Because I think we all have a really good idea of what we think we should be, how we think we should act, how we want to act. But if we can reframe this into this idea of unconditional love, of agape. So when I'm talking about love, I'm not talking about eros and romantic love. This is just, I love you because you are human. This is universal love. I love you because I love myself, and I love myself because I love you. That type of love. And so if we look at consent as, how can I hold the space where I love and honor and respect myself so much that all I want to do is bring more love and beauty and understanding into the world? How would I act from that point? And if I can find that place in me where my ultimate desire is to create beauty and goodness and love for all other beings, then that's when consent doesn't become something that I feel like I have to do. It's something I want to do. I want to say, how are you feeling? Are you comfortable? Are you excited? And honestly, if you start to operate from this place of unconditional love, of open-heartedness, the places where the lines seem to blur less, because the conversation no longer becomes, well, is this an okay behavior or is this not an okay behavior? Because we can generally know what is an appropriate behavior and what's not an appropriate behavior. And if we don't know, we can always ask. Asking never hurts. And one of the ways that I've really started to look at this is kind of on a chakra level. And so if we can look at this from the philosophical viewpoint that we have our crown chakra, and it goes up to the point where we connect to source, and we differentiate from source, but we do not disconnect at this point, right? And so we can see that there is some sort of oneness, unity between all beings. Then what we can start to see is as we come down the chakras, then that's where we get more ego, we get more differentiation, and the lines of communication become more blurry. But if we can start having this conversation from a place of, where is my highest good connecting with your highest good, then that's going to be really powerful, because my highest good wants your highest good, and your highest good wants my highest good, because that's the only way that we will actually have all of our highest good. And so like if you look in Buddhist philosophy with the idea of the Bodhisattva is a person who has taken a vow to come back and reincarnate time and time again to help all beings reach enlightenment. Because the idea is, until all beings are enlightened, no beings can truly reach that level. And so if we can look at consent as something that we are doing to help all of humanity evolve simultaneously, and we are working with our highest selves. Maybe that's a better way to look at it, rather than these are the expectations and the things I have to do. And so then if we go from, the seventh chakra, this place where we're connected to source, we can come down to our voices and we can speak out. We can have those conversations. But we can also, oftentimes, I would say, we're pretty intuitive creatures. We do live in a society that's not particularly known for being the best at communication or the best at acknowledging our intuition. And at the same time, generally, when we have that hunch or that intuition, if we listen to that little voice, then it's spot on. And so this is the thing with consent, is I don't doubt that anyone has the ability to look at someone and say, are you enthusiastically consenting to whatever that it is that we're doing, whether that's sexual or friendship-wise or, just a community. We all know, have I overstayed my welcome? Is it generally okay if I go over here? Would this be accepted and excited and something that you're looking forward to? We all have this general sense of knowing. And the thing is, I found we tend to disregard our intuition, particularly when what our intuition is saying is in contrast with our ego. And so our ego says, I want this. And our intuition may say, okay, you might want that, but that's not the way to go about it. So your ego says, I want to have sex with this person. And your ego says, okay, well, the only way to do that is to convince them, to coerce them, to talk them into it. Versus, okay, that can be a desire. There's nothing wrong with the desire. And I think that's one of the other places where this conversation can seem to fall flat, is people will say, oh, well, I have this desire and I thought that I couldn't have the desires. No, we are human. We have desires. There's nothing wrong with having those desires. But the conversation comes in with, you have this desire. And now, how do you look to your highest sense of being and look to this idea of unconditional agape love, of I love this person enough to ask, and I love myself enough that I don't ever want to do anything that would be untoward towards another person, right? And so we have to keep looking in and saying, where is this coming from my ego, where I say, I have to have this, and the only way that I can get this is through coercion, is through force. Honestly, it lacks creativity. Because generally, if you want something, there's always a way to get it. Maybe it's not, oh, well, I want to have sex with that person, I'm going to get sex with that person. Maybe not. But what's actually under that? Okay, I want to have sex with that person over there. Well, maybe that person doesn't want to have sex, but what's under that? Is it, I want an orgasm? Is it, I'm lonely? Is it, I don't feel loved? Is it, I want to feel good enough? What is the actual deeper emotion? And so often we go with that first initial desire of, that's what I want and that's what I have to have, versus taking the time to sit and be patient and hold that tension and really ask the question, what is my true desire right now? And then how can I express that desire and get what I actually want? Because oftentimes, our interest is, our position is not our interest. Our position is saying, this is what I want. The position is, I want to have sex with that person over there. Or the position is, I want you to turn off your music. But the interest is, I'm sad and lonely and I feel like there's a hole that I need to have by having sex with that person. Or, orgasm sounds really nice. Or, I really want to share my love with someone. Any of those things. Or with the music one. The position is, that person has to turn their music over there. But the interest really is, well, what do I need? Well, what I need with you turning that music off is, I really hate dubstep. Okay, well, let's look at earplugs. Let's look at moving 20 feet that way. Or, well, it's dubstep. You might have to move half a mile that way. But, so it's about how do we actually dig deeper? And I think that's the biggest thing, is when we feel a need to coerce someone, we're not acting from love. We're acting from fear. We're acting from, oh my gosh, I have this need and I don't think my need is going to be met. And so instead of saying, I'm afraid that my needs aren't going to be met, this is where we ask the question. We have a conversation of, this is what need, and I'm using need in probably an improper term because I would actually define need as a life or death situation. So maybe we should say want, right? And so I can say, this is what I want. And this seems like the easiest way to get it. And can I be more creative to get this in a more harmonious, more loving way that honors myself as well as the other people that I'm interacting with? And so we're not looking at, am I going to step on somebody's toes? Am I going to hurt them? We're not operating consent out of fear, because I think a lot of times people are looking at consent as being this fear-based situation, particularly in the Me Too movement. Like, I've heard so many amazing men come up to me and just like, I'm a little afraid that, I'm going to do something inappropriate. And it's like, well, we all do inappropriate things sometimes, right? But if we can really go back to this idea of listen to your intuition, and then if you're not 100% sure, ask. And just bounce that energy off of the universe when you think of, okay, this is a situation I want to go into. Bounce the idea. Does it even feel good? And, and you can usually, with your intuition, say, yeah, that's not a direction I really should go. I might really want to go that way, but I shouldn't go that way. And so we can really think of asking ourselves, how can I give more? How can I share more out of my heart chakra? How can I really give more to the world rather than how can the world give to me? Because when we give more to the world, then what we're doing, if we kind of look at it at a multidimensional level, is that we're actually creating the world that we want. And then when that world is created, then the basic things that we desire are met more easily. And so if we can keep looking at it that way, of the more that we can give, and we give to people that want to be given to. When we give to people that don't want to be given to, then that's coming from a place of ego. That's coming from a place of taking something from them, because now you're asking them to hold space for whatever it is that you're doing, and that's not holding them in their highest regards and not really allowing their autonomy. And so the entire question really becomes, how can I be autonomous, have my desires fulfilled in creative ways that I find solutions for, rather than how can the world meet my desires? This is how can I creatively meet them? And then when you get other people on board with those desires that you have, then that's where it becomes really fun. This is where you get this idea of enthusiastic consent. Because we all know when somebody's enthusiastically consenting to something, no matter what it is, their face lights up, their eyes light up, they get so excited. And that excitement is really what I think we're all looking for. And we don't necessarily know how to get it. And so that's kind of my suggestion for today of how to really seek to get that enthusiastic consent, is check in with your intuition. And then really check in with your ego. See if it's an interest or a position. See, is there a way to get this by giving love rather than by taking? And then look for the creative ways to find that enthusiastic consent, to find that fuck yeah. So thank you so much to everybody that signed in. And Spencer just said, an attitude of a servant brings out goodness. It totally does. That's definitely the way that I have found the greatest goodness in my life. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.